Unfortunately, I don't think the courts ruled in the purchaser's favor on that one because they signed what they signed. That was the agreement. And the worst part is all we ought to do is refund your deposit. So these deposits were held for however long it was, and there's no interest paid back. It's just refund deposits.
And now the land was worth considerably more. Is that what happened over that time?
Yeah, look, it's in completely bad taste, and the contracts were signed to allow for that.
Today's guest is Kaveer Soni, commercial lawyer, litigation specialist, and founder of Soni Legal. With over a decade of legal experience across South Africa and Australia, Kaveer brings a deep understanding of business, construction, and insolvency law and how it all affects investors. What sets Kaveer apart is his ability to simplify complex legal issues and give clients realistic, strategic advice. Whether you're dealing with property contracts, joint ventures, building disputes, or planning for asset protection, Kaveer helps investors make smart legal decisions with clarity and confidence. He's here to unpack the legal side of investing and how you can protect yourself from costly mistakes. Kaveer, welcome to the Smart Investor Show. Kaveer Soni, welcome to the Smart Investor Show.
Thanks, Julian. It's great to be here.
Now, it's good to have you on. I'm really excited to get your legal view around property investing and just things for property buyers in general in the market. I know you've got a business that does a lot of work in there and also a personal expertise in that space. It'd be good to uncover a few rocks there with you today.
Yeah, quite a bit of personal experience in the property sector. And as far as the business is concerned, quite a lot of experience with disputes.
Excellent. All right, well, let's start how I normally start is I'd love to go back a little bit and, learn a little bit about you, the person, where you've come from, so to speak, a bit of education, and then, where are we today in terms of your business and a little bit about your business.
So, yes, I'm Australian, but also I was born in South Africa, so I hold two passports. And we also trace our lineage to India. So despite people in our family, my wife and 3 kids. So if you're going places, we can travel with up to 15 books.
That might be hard when they say passport, please. You're shuffling through your entire catalogue.
Well, the good thing about it is that most of the world is open to us because South Africa has access to countries some of the West doesn't have. So for instance, if I wanted to, I could go to Russia without a visa.
Maybe not right now, but...
yeah, I can be a little bit I'll come to South Africa.
Great. So born in South Africa, then studied in South Africa and then came to Australia. Was that the journey that got you to Australia?
No. So I was born in Durban, South Africa. Then I moved to the United States. I lived in Orlando, Florida for 4 years. And that was my high school. Finished high school, went to Durban, went to university, got BCom, then an LLB throughout my years in Durban and Johannesburg. When we moved back in 2005 is when my father really started getting properly into the property game, and that's when he bought his first block of units. It's a different beast altogether to Australia. South Africa, you buy more on your yield cash flow if you buy commercial property. For all intents and purposes, you're not really buying for capital growth as much. There hasn't been significant capital growth in South Africa as you do get here in Australia. But the property ever since has been very kind to us and our family. So that's been our foundation, I guess, since we got into it. As to, we tried a lot of other things, but there's always property in the background.
Excellent. And then did you guys do much investing in Australia when you got here as well, or mainly kept your assets overseas?
So the bulk of our family's property is in South Africa because it's easier to scale over there. The property prices itself isn't that expensive, but you have to be on the ground. So you have to have people on the ground with it. It's not a walk in the park. Australia is very easy. You get a good property manager and you're set. South Africa, even if you got a property manager, you got to still be on top of it. So
right. So are the laws not as strict around the tenancy laws and things like that there? Is that the danger?
Yeah, tenancy and also illegal occupation, and just trying to push them out. If they do illegally occupy your property, it's a long drawn out process to do that. That's part of it. Then obviously getting payments, enforcing rents and all of that. It's something you can't just leave to somebody and hope for the best. You actually got to kind of be a little bit more active for it to get a more substantial return. Completely different beast to Australia. Australia, you can buy, set and forget. So if you want to.
All right. And so came to Australia, and then did you work for some firms from a legal side, or you started your own business pretty quickly?
So in Johannesburg is where I finished all my legal studies, and I set up my own law firm in Johannesburg shortly after being just after being a candidate attorney, and I did a little bit of work as an admitted attorney for another law firm, and then I said, just start my own. It's just the circumstances in South Africa is such that to make any real money, you have to be more entrepreneurial. So the best way to make money is to set up your own shop, and that's what I did there. So when we moved to Australia in 2016, I had to work for a few people to get the local experience, and then as soon as I could, I've applied to the Law Society. I showed them, look, I ran a law firm in Johannesburg. My trust orders are all clean, and they let me open up shop. And I said, great, cool. But I had no network. So
Right.
I just started cold calling, essentially, for lack of a better word. And from there, it's been then 7 years now, and we're still alive. So I like to think that's a very good sign.
Yeah, no, well done. Good story, and quite a journey to get you where you are today. Well done. Mate, I'd love to dive in to the law. Probably segue into, you talked about buying property in a family consortium type of thing, or a trust. One question I get a lot, especially recently, is, I want to buy, which is quite common. It makes sense. A lot of people can't afford to buy on their own, so they want to buy, either partner up with a brother, a sister, a cousin, an uncle, an auntie, a parent. It's becoming a lot more common in the questions. And what sort of advice would you give, high level, around, what are the things that someone should look into and be careful of, and the pros and cons of potentially buying in sort of that type of JV situation?
Well, practically, you all both better love each other, like proper, and trust each other completely, because once you start buying property with the third party who's not your spouse, and there's scope for that relationship to break down, then that property fall in the middle of dispute. So I have members of my family that I absolutely love, and I have members of my family that I love, but I will not do business with. My father and his brother has a very, very close relationship, and have a very, very close bond and trust, and they trust each other. And that works phenomenally for both of them. But they still have their own property portfolios as separate, completely separate. But I understand that people want to jump into the property market, and the only way to do it is to have some sort of JV with some sort of family member. The reason is, why are we having that? What's the circumstances, I guess, is one, providing the deposits completely. Then over there, you're probably better off having a memorandum of understanding and a loan agreement between two, if that's the case.
What if they're going in, Jake? A lot of the ones I hear is, if it's a parent, normally the parent's supplying at least a deposit, and then maybe let's say the child will get the loan. But the other one I'm more interested in, what about the ones where it's friends or brothers and sisters, which you hear a lot, and that's great to do while you're young. But then, like you said, maybe the relationship doesn't break down, but both of those parties then have relationships or get married, and those relationships break down. What's one way to protect yourself on that? I guess it's always to have clauses in there and seek obviously professional legal advice from yourself, people like yourself, to ensure you've got all that covered, right all the way to the end.
Yeah, so in situations like that, I guess it's best to get a tailored solution, because it may be very, very different for different people in different circumstances. Get your intentions drawn up right at the beginning, as much as you'll love each other at the beginning, and it's, what's mine, it's yours, what's yours, it's mine. It's all nice and fair, but just get your intentions drawn up as to where each party stands, and pretend it's the worst case scenario has happened. We got to split ways. How are we doing this? And it's best to do it right at the beginning, when everyone is still starry-eyed. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, no, 50-50 sounds fine. If you do it later on, it's like, no, well, I did everything, you did nothing, and I want 100%, you should get nothing, and let me give you token. And then that's when the dispute starts.
What about other type of trust structures, like a bloodline trust and other concepts like that? Is that something that people could consider if they're in a family type of environment?
So usually discretionary trust. So it just depends on how they want to structure the thing. And then I guess more so, they'll probably be sitting with their accountants for tax advice as to how to do it. Now, I'm not giving tax advice on this at all. But generally, I think the accountants like it when people put it in their own name. But as a lawyer, we hate that completely because that's just exposure. And we love trusts. We love companies. We love mitigating risk.
Yeah, so let's talk about that because you do get different levels of opinion. So like you said, put it in your name, there could be some tax benefits. Maybe that's why the accountant will go down that route. And you're talking more around building, you said risk minimization and asset protection and terms like that. So what should someone like, for example, if you're pay-as-you-go earner, is there a lot you need to mitigate there around risk compared to, say, a business owner or someone who's in a highly litigious industry, say a doctor? Should they have a different lens when it comes to setting up these type of vehicles?
Usually doctors would have, as far as I've seen, they normally buy properties either in the SMSFs or if they do buy it in their name, it's negatively geared and quite highly leveraged, and they have their strategies which they set down with their experts, and the bottom line is to actually do it and sit down and plan it as to how you're going to go about doing it. Sit with your accountant or your lawyer, and you're like to mitigate your risk. Your accountant likes to mitigate your tax. It's okay to have it in your name. If you're taking out a loan, the bank's going to have listed on the property in any case if everything goes wrong. What you're risking is effectively your deposit. So in that sense, I don't think there's like your typical vanilla 80% finance, 20% deposits on a property. Either way, whether you buy it in a trust structure or a company or individually, the bank is always going to have the first bite of the cherry, and they're going to take everything they can. So yeah, in that sense, going about your business as normal, listening to your accountants, that's fine. But it's when you get to more like now we're talking empire.
Yeah, I think with the more mum and dad investors that we deal with, it's probably more that smaller, those smaller portfolios, going from one to, the family home normally is where they start with generally, and then they take equity and start building from there and get to 4 or 5. And, as you know, once you get to past 6, you're in a very, very small percentage of the Australian population, 0.2 something % of the population. So, once you get over 6, you're in a very different level of properties.
I'm presuming some of your clients also take the equity from their investment property?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So, I always say it's a game of finance just as much as it is a game of property, because if you can't get finance, we can't talk about buying property, right? So leveraging is the key. The Smart Property Show is proudly brought to you by Search Party Property, nominated by REB as Australia's best buyer's agency and buyer's agent for 2025. Looking for your dream family home, a prime commercial property, or a smart investment? We've got you covered. Unlike others, we don't rely on selling agents or property managers. We have boots on the ground in key investment cities across Australia. Powered by data-driven insights, we give you the edge to secure the best deals. Ready to invest smarter and grow faster? Contact Search Party Property today for a complimentary discovery call. Another thing we hear of, we don't do a lot of house land packages, but you hear it either through press or different stories that I get that, people getting caught sometimes with house land packages and maybe not really studying the contracts, sometimes buying through these companies that are one-stop shop where they do the legals, they do the accounting, they do the selling as well. And so obviously everything's skewed in their favor. And then when something goes astray around the building of their house or their home or their investment property, then haven't got really good legs to stand on. What sort of, again, risk mitigation would you discuss with a client coming to you around looking at buying a property, buying a block of land and building a house, or buying a package type concept?
Always have the contract reviewed by your lawyer, not by their lawyer. Lawyers are, again, they human, they make mistakes, but they also insured. So if they do give you the advice and it turns out that it was some sort of exposure that they missed, they insured for that. So just go and speak to your lawyer.
What's a couple of the key matters that they should really focus on in that contract? Well,
I guess it's more vetting your own development and the builder. Like, I guess you might be referring to one of the matters where somewhere out Western Sydney, quite a few people bought land, was refunded, they put their deposits, and the developers sold it for a higher price afterwards.
That's right. I think that was just in the paper the other day. You're right. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think the courts ruled in the purchaser's favor on that one because they signed what they signed. That was the agreements.
So it was more of a buyer beware. Was that kind of the verdict, that you signed something and there was a clause that allowed that to happen, or?
Pretty much right. And the worst part is all we have to do is refund your deposit. So these deposits were held for however long it was, and there's no interest paid back. It's just refund deposits.
And now the land was worth considerably more. Is that what happened over that time?
Yeah, look, it's in completely bad taste. It's completely distasteful to do that. But be it as it may, something like that was done, and the contracts were signed in that, to allow for that. So definitely get it reviewed.
No, thanks for that. Yeah, I think it was one of those topics that come up a lot. It's probably more, I don't work in that space, but I get a lot of people coming to me asking for help. And normally my advice is exactly what you said. I always say, please just do me one favor. If you're going to buy it through one of those one-stop shop providers, which is fine, just get your legals reviewed by an independent company rather than a lawyer, rather than their own. Not that anything's untoward, but you want independent advice. It's never independent when the person is working for the owner of the selling company of the stock. So it's something that I hear a lot of. And then that's the one where they come back to me and say, oh my God, I'm in trouble now. This happened. And I'm like, did you get independent advice? And they just stare at me. It's like, well, I didn't do that because I wanted to save a couple of $1,000s, right? And now they're in a big hole. So I think that's the most basic and most important advice that we can give someone.
Exactly, 100%. And the other one is not legal, just more practical. See who you're dealing with. What's the track record of the person? Who's doing your bulls? Have they been around for a while? Are they registered? Do they have a license?
It's tricky, right? A lot of people don't do that. They're just going to, because they're speaking these days, everything's done over a telephone or a Zoom call. A lot of these type of companies are very good at social media. They're spending $50,000 to $100,000 a month on Facebook ads. So in front of the camera, they're selling a great story. Now, no one's going to take the time and research that. Unfortunately, we believe what we see on Facebook and different types of ads. And that's probably one of the dangers now. And that's very different to, you think 10 years ago when people were sitting in front of someone face to face, would actually walk out to a block of land and look at it. So it makes it faster for sales agents, but I guess for the buyer, we need to be aware of doing a little bit of research, or at least getting independent advice and ask them to do that for you.
So one of the ways I mitigate my risk is I use the buyer's agent. Will allow you to get that time to breathe and not be pressured by just what the seller's agent has to tell you.
I guess what we say, we're independent of the transaction, right? There's no emotional attachment to us. We're totally negotiating on behalf of the buyer, and the real estate agent, or what we call the selling agent, is working totally 100% for the seller, and his or her job is to sell the property at the highest price.
Exactly, and it's okay when, like, if you understand your own market and what you're doing and what you're buying, and great, you're comfortable with it. But where you don't really know what the market is locally, is there actually that shopping center coming up? Do you even have the time to do that research? That's the question. The buyer's agents are there too. They're looking at the parts of land, and they're looking at what's coming up. And my first property I bought here was through a buyer's agent, with the help of buyer's agents, and it's been wonderful, that property.
No, that's a good plug for buyer's agents, by the way. But I mean, for me, it's about that independence and ensuring that people protect themselves from a legal perspective as well. What about commercial property? It's something that we're getting clients now who are bigger incomes, looking to more mature in age, maybe bigger superannuation balances, as you mentioned earlier, and looking to build some sort of revenue for the future, for retirement. And so commercial then comes on the radar, normally after a couple of residential properties, so they get that out of the way, and then it takes a little bit more courage, it's a bit more risk. What's your tell me some of the legal sides that we should be aware of around commercial property buying?
Look, the legals would be similar to residentials, except your leases and who's leasing the property. Do you have like the what you call the triple net lease, and how strong is that to put that hold? Get reviewed. It's not that expensive to do that. At the end of the day, it's a fantastic asset. Like, it should be a fantastic asset if you did the job right.
Thank you. Got lots of nuggets there for our listeners, particularly around protection, working in JVs, how to mitigate that. I guess what you say, plan for the worst in that situation, particularly if you're working with relatives and friends, that when sometimes it's great when we're just two parties, but then two parties become four parties later when relationship and marriages occur or break down, and then it's hard to, one party may not be ready to sell and things like that. So I think that's some really sage advice for a lot of people who are looking to get into that, particularly pooling money together now to get into the market.
Yeah. So I guess the takeaway from that is just go and see your lawyer at the beginning and tell them what you'll want at the beginning whilst everybody is happy.
Yeah. I guess the problem is there, Kaveer, what I see every day is people don't know what they don't know. So they don't know what they want at the end. So I think that's where, like you said, the legal advice will have a lot of questions. You'll probably ask them, I'm sure, 50 questions when they come to you to build that document, I guess, exactly what you mean.
That's our job. You don't know what you don't know. So we're going to ask you what you want to do. And to the extent you don't know, we'll find it and we'll find out what's the intention with this property, where you're going with it. And we'll put it down to writing. It'll put it down to this is where we're going, and there's your own there.
Excellent. Well, mate, thanks very much. Lots of value there. And I'm sure we'll obviously put your details in the show notes if people want to get in touch with you in regards to their property and commercial legal needs. So thanks again for your time, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon. If you enjoyed the show, it'd mean a lot if you could take a moment to rate and review it on your favourite podcast platform. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. The Smart Investor Show provides general information and commentary about property, finance, and investing. It does not constitute financial, legal, tax, or investment advice tailored to your personal circumstances. Before making any financial decisions, you should seek professional advice from a qualified advisor. While we aim for accuracy and quality, we cannot guarantee all information is complete, up to date, or free from errors. Past performance is not a reliable indicator of future results. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next time.